Why you keep starting over with your finances. Have you ever noticed something? Every few months, you feel financially motivated again. You make a plan, you open up a spreadsheet, and you promise yourself this time will be different. And for a while, it is. You save a little, you reduce your spending, you feel more in control, and then life happens. An emergency, a stressful month, some fatigue for all the pressure you're dealing with at work, and suddenly you're back exactly where you started again. And after a while, the most exhausting part of this process isn't even the money anymore. It's the constant restarting. I once spoke with a woman in her early 40s. She's a very capable program manager at a business development organization. Very intelligent, very driven, and very good at what she does. She has a strong career as well, with a lot of influence in her field. But she said something that stuck with me then, till date. She said, I feel like every year I rebuild my finances from zero. Now, on the surface, her life looked enviable. She has a very good salary, a professional reputation, and an active social life. But in her private finances, she feels very fragile. She would save consistently for a time. And then traveling expenses would increase every time she goes on holiday. Her family obligations would appear suddenly out of nowhere. Unplanned costs would show up, and emotional exhaustion and guilt would creep in. Then slowly, the structure she's been building for that year collapses, and the guilt would hit. After that avoidance, and eventually, she starts over. Hi, if this is your first time listening in, I'm Isaac Nkusi, a financial literacy professional focused on financial decision-making architecture. I've spent over a decade working with professionals, organizations, and business owners, helping them manage and overcome financial stress. And here is an unfortunate truth. Most professionals aren't stuck because they lack income. You're stuck, financially speaking, because you don't consistently make use of an intentional system that tells your money what to do each month. Let's fix that. You're listening to the Money Blueprint podcast. Now, listen carefully. The issue with this client wasn't that she lacked discipline, even though she believed that's what the problem was. But that wasn't really what she was dealing with. The real problem was this. Her financial system depended too heavily on motivation. And motivation is unstable. Some months you feel focused, other months you don't. Some months you feel calm, other months punch you in the face. So if your entire financial structure depends on feeling inspired, feeling disciplined, feeling strong emotionally, then eventually you will collapse back into old habits and patterns. Not because you're weak, but because your system was temporary. So, why do people keep restarting financially? Why does progress disappear so easily? Most people approach money from an emotional position. And that's a simple answer. They become serious about finances when they feel fear, when they feel guilt, when they feel pressure, or when they feel inspired. But emotions fluctuate, they change. And when emotions change, behavior fluctuates as well. So people create temporary intensity instead of permanent systems. That's why January budgeting, January New Year's resolutions fail. That's why people start afresh every few months. That's why saving feels like a cycle of progress, then collapse, then recovery, then regret, then repetition. Because there's no stable structure underneath all that effort. All right, let me say something that might be difficult for people in this pattern, this holding pattern. You don't rise financially to the level of your intentions. You fall to the level of your systems. You don't rise to the level of your intentions. You fall to the level of your systems. That's just the truth. Because intentions are emotional, but systems are structural and operational. And this is where people confuse hope with structure. They think, I need to try harder. You really don't. That's not it. You need fewer decisions. Because every repeated financial decision drains your energy. What should I save? What should I be spending? When should I delay? What should I prioritize? What should I be doing? And eventually, those decisions create fatigue, and that fatigue wins. That's why automation is so important, why routines are so important, and why financial rhythms matter. Not because they're exciting, they're often boring, but because those systems survive bad days and lack of motivation. You stop building your finances around how you feel, and you start building your finances around systems that continue functioning despite you're feeling tired. You're feeling like you're unmotivated. Automatic transfers, scheduled reviews, defined spending limits, investment contributions that happen before emotion enters the conversation, that's what gets you going, because the goal is not to become a perfect person. The goal is to reduce the number of moments where your emotions can sabotage your plans for your future. That's what structure does. It protects your future self from temporary versions of your current person. So, how do you stop living in financial restart cycles? How do you finally create some level of consistency? An identity shift. Most people see financial success as intensity, extreme saving, extreme discipline, extreme sacrifice. But sustainable financial progress usually looks much less dramatic than that. It looks like repetition. It looks like calm. It looks like structure and order. The people who build wealth long term are often not the same emotional people financially. They are people with the most repeatable systems. So the shift is quite simple. You stop trying to become more motivated and you start becoming more organized, more structured. And here's where you begin. First, stop rebuilding from zero emotionally every single month. Your financial plan should not depend on how inspired you feel. That's the first thing. Secondly, identify the points where your system repeatedly breaks down. What is it that's causing you to break down time after time? Is it overspending with your friends? Is it emotional pressure from your family? Is it irregular savings where you feel motivated to drop over at the bank and make a deposit? Is it a lack of planning where you don't know when you should sit down and think through your finances? Because patterns are critical. And then third, reduce friction. Automate what matters most first. If saving matters most, automate that. If investing matters most, automate that. If emergency funds matter most, automate that. If they all matter, automate them all. Make your most important financial decisions once and for all. Then let the system repeat them month in, month out, because repetition creates stability, and stability creates momentum. So, if you take nothing else from this episode of the Money Blueprint podcast, take this. You are not failing financially because you keep making the same mistakes. You are struggling because you keep relying on temporary motivation instead of permanent, solid structure for your habits. And until your financial behavior becomes systematic, you'll keep living in cycles of progress, collapse, and restart. But once structure enters the picture, everything changes, not overnight, but steadily and consistently every day. Now, if you listen to this and you're tired of restarting financially every few months, then that's exactly why the Money Farmers Investment Club exists. It's not to create pressure, but to create structure. A consistent environment where decisions are clear, systems are repeated, and progress stops depending on how you feel on emotion alone. Because long term financial growth is usually less about being intense and more about being consistent. So, if you want to explore that further, you'll find more information in the description. Take your time, review it carefully, and join us when you're ready to get your money under control. This is the Money Blueprint Podcast, where financial progress stops being emotional and start becoming structural, organized. Now, before we go, as always, we have a few questions from our listeners that my producer will read out and I'll discuss. So stay tuned for that.
First question. Hi Isaac, my name is Aline and I'm a procurement officer here in Kigali. My question is, how do you know when your small daily spending has actually become a serious financial problem? Because honestly, most of my spendings don't feel irresponsible in the moment. It's things like delivery apps when I'm tired after work, coffee meetings with friends, small online shopping purchases, transport conveniences, things that individually don't seem dangerous. But at the end of every month, I somehow feel financially squeezed and I'm struggling to save consistently. So, how can someone tell the difference between enjoying life responsibly and quietly leaking money that should be helping build their future?
Oh yeah, this is a great question, Aline, and one that we've talked about a couple episodes before, and I'm pretty sure that's where this question comes from. It's lifestyle creep. It's the it's not the big spending that gets in your way, financially speaking, especially of your financial progress. It's the little things. And by the way, this is also true, generally speaking, about life. Getting the things that get in the way of your progress, your march towards success in whatever discipline, is the little distractions. The big ones you watch out for. And that's why they're not usually the main culprit. These big distractions, they come with a warning label and you can see them coming a mile away. But the little distractions, the few dollars here, the few rand of francs there, the simple cup of coffee or night out with your friends or unplanned weekend out with the family, these little distractions add up. And that's exactly why they're so threatening, because they don't impact you all at once. Just like you said, they don't feel irresponsible all at once, but over time, a little distraction again and again consistently over time significantly draws down the capital that you could have been using to grow your financial stability and ultimately your wealth. So how do you balance uh, enjoying your life, responsibility, and preventing quiet leaking, quiet leakage in your bank account? Well, plan for it. Plan for your fun. Line item budgeting in your budget, line item fun, going out with your friends, spending time with family, going on holiday, line item these things and give them a budget. Say, this month I'm setting aside X amount of money that fits realistically within my budget to have a good time, and then stick to that. Because when you do that, the money that you spend on having a good time doesn't impact the money that you've dedicated for for growth activities or for protecting you from emergencies or for preparing for large spending in the future, right? So when you categorize things and budget for them, then you can do those things guilt free because they're planned for and they're not enjoyed at the expense of something else which is more important than having a good time, right? So that's how you balance it out. That's how you have guilt free spending. I hope that helps, Aline, but excellent question.
Second question. Hello Isaac, my name is Brian and I work in telecom sales in Nairobi. I related a lot to your point about reward spending after stressful work weeks. I've noticed that whenever I work very hard or close a big sales target, I immediately feel like I deserve to spend money to celebrate or relax. Sometimes it's eating out, sometimes it's gadgets, sometimes it's weekends away. The problem is, I still feel financially stuck even though I earn relatively well for my age. My question is, how do you balance enjoying the money you work hard for without sabotaging long term wealth building? Because I don't want to feel like I'm suffering all the time just to save money.
It's like Brian was listening into Aline's question when he sent his. Uh, Again, I get it though, because this is a very, very common concern. This is a common issue around not having, too many of us find budgeting like a diet, like a really strict, rigid, no fun having, no enjoyment diet. And unfortunately, that's a it's a sad view to have about budgeting, because budgeting, setting guardrails and frameworks around the way you do what you do, doesn't limit you. Actually, it liberates you. It frees you up to do what you know you're supposed to do, knowing that you have the funds for it if you've planned for it, and also being able to enjoy it, like I said to Aline, guilt free. This is really the best attribute of organizing how you spend. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with enjoying the fruit of your labor, having fun with the proceeds of what you've worked so hard for. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And none of us should feel that intrinsically, naturally, there's something wrong with enjoying your money. The problem comes in if you are enjoying your money at the expense of something important that needs to be done and is more important than having fun. That's where the problem comes in. But if we are structured and organized, we can have some fun and still structure and organize the way we are building whatever we're building up towards. So balance. Again, I've said it so many times before, and I'll continue saying it so many times moving forward. We need balance. When we are balanced in organizing what we need to get done, our needs, our investment objectives, and setting aside a little bit, some money for having a good time, that dinner out with your friends or that special person, going on a holiday, having a party. These are good things, but we must celebrate within reason, within structure, so that we don't we don't want to celebrate at the expense of our growth, but we also don't want to live a life of quiet desperation where it's constantly grow, 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 work, 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 pay bills constantly, and then just no joy in what you're doing. That is not sustainable either. Neither of the two are sustainable if you're only doing one thing full throttle, full energy. Only work will make you a very dull boy, and only fun compromises your future. So balance. Balance is ultimately what it comes down to. So enjoy your money in a structure. Figure out how much you want to spend on fun, but that amount you want to spend on fun, it must exist after paying for what you need for your current and future spending and investment activities. So that's what I would say. Have fun within reason and plan for it. Excellent question again. Followed up, Brian and Aline, you're birds of a feather.
We have our last question from Dr. Emmanuel from Kampala, a medical doctor and father of three. Listening to the podcast made me uncomfortable because I realized how much money disappears through convenience spending in my household. Since my wife and I are both busy professionals, we often choose the easier option. Takeout food, quick shopping decisions, subscription services we barely use, frequent small transactions that save time but probably cost us a lot over the year. Individually, the amounts seem small, but together I suspect they're preventing us from investing more aggressively for the future. My question is, how should a busy family realistically approach controlling these small daily expenses without becoming extreme or miserable about money?
Yeah, wow. Dr. Emmanuel, thank you for sending that message in from Kampala. Look, this is always going to be a tough conversation internally and with your partner. It probably would be a tough conversation with your kids too when they get used to effectively, eating out, making quick snapshot shopping decisions, paying for subscription services for distraction, or either to distract yourself or distract your children when you're too busy. Or just one thing that we've experienced in my household with our kids is just, obviously, as any busy parent would agree, having a few moments just to sit down somewhere and take a load off all the obligations and the pressures that you're dealing with every day. Just taking a minute, having your kids sit down and watch something or listen to something or being distracted by something while you take a breather. This is an extremely emotional situation and question to ask. It's not going to be a one size fits all. It does come back to planning to some degree. The better our plans are, the more automatic our behavior can become, right? And what I mean is if we have structured exactly how we want to manage what the kids eat, when they eat, what quality of food they eat, what we shop for, when we shop, what we are buying, what we are not buying. When these structures become planned, then we can lean into automatic behavior. When we go to the shop every Wednesday evening, every Friday, every Monday, we buy 1, 2, 3, and we don't buy 4, 5, 6 because of these decisions. When our kids are eager for something, they want, our kids, obviously, our young children, we've been working to train them not to crave sweets because of all the damage sweets can do, sugar can do, to a developing mind, to a developing body, even a developed one, right? Sugar, which is not in control. Sugar is a very good example of money, right? A correlation. The sugar or the money which isn't under control, which isn't measured and given in healthy moderation, it can easily spoil the system, right? And so this goes for your money, Dr. Emmanuel, and it also goes for sugar that we give our kids, the money we give our kids, the sugar we give our kids. If we give our kids too much money, if we throw money at problems because we're tired, and I totally get it. I don't want it to seem like this is not a real problem that many professionals experience. We make snapshot financial decisions when we are tired, when we're fatigued, when we're under high pressure. We want to solve the problem quickly, and one way to solve the problem is just throw money at the problem. But usually that creates new problems, and it's clear that you've identified this reality that throwing money at a problem creates new problems. The quicker you order how you're going to spend on these particular issues, and the quicker that you have a family discussion, if necessary, with your spouse, with your kids about these changes and the reasons why these changes are critical, the quicker you can set into new habits with your money that allows you to cope with your stressful situations, following a plan, not making decisions each moment. I've mentioned it before on the podcast. When we make decisions in the moment, we get tired by constantly doing that. So when you make a decision in the beginning of the month or the beginning of a circumstance and say, in these situations, this is what we do, then you remove the need to make a decision every time you find yourself in that circumstance. You've already given yourself a preset instruction on what to do. When I'm tired and we have to shop, regardless of how I feel, this is what we buy. This is the list. When my kids are asking me for this, regardless of the situation, regardless of how I'm feeling, this is what we buy and this is what we don't buy. When it comes to snacks, when it comes to toys, when it comes to gifts for others, this is how we manage these situations. It allows you to free up your mental energy by not having to make these decisions on the spot each time they come up. I really hope that helps because that's the way we deal with it and it works wonderfully for us. Excellent question, Dr. Mann, and good luck to you and your spouse with your family making these habit formation changes in your home. That's all we had time for today. Thank you so much for listening in to the Money Blueprint Podcast. Again, if you have your questions, send them into the Money Blueprint Podcast at gmail.com. We're happy to include them. And I will see you on the next episode as we get back in to managing personal finance. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that today's conversation has given you some of the tools that you need to create the life you want with your money. If you have any questions you'd also like answered, feel free to send them to our email, themoneyblueprintpodcast@gmail.com. You can also reach out to us on our social media platforms. Have a great week.
This podcast is for general informational and educational purposes only, and does not provide financial, investment, legal, or tax advice. Do not make decisions before consulting a qualified professional. This podcast is brought to you by LF Media, home of great African podcasts.